Welcome to Season 4 of the Ascent Podcast, a show about inspiring people who explain their path to achievement. I'm your host, Joe Burgess, Wealth Advisor at Moxie Wealth Management. Today on the show, we chat with Joe Renslow, Executive VP of Business Development and Marketing at Mall of America. We hear about the rise in her career from intern to her current position, dealing with the pandemic, and the initiatives the mall is undertaking with Twin Cities communities. Jill, welcome to the podcast. At least through Zoom now, I get to see you and we get to meet each other. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I wish we could be in person, but this is the next best thing. So glad to be here.
Leading into this, I know your role as Executive VP of Business Development and Marketing at the Mall of America. And to prepare for this interview, of course, I Googled all the data I could on the Mall of America, which of course, is probably entirely inaccurate. But some of the data that I have here is 520 stores, 5.6 million or so square feet in the store, 42 million people roughly come into the Mall of America every year, which is roughly 8 times the number of people in Minnesota. So quite a volume. In fact, I think I read from the square footage standpoint, you could fit 7 Yankee stadiums inside. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. I'm impressed.
See?
You did your homework.
Right.
I was going to say, well, this is going to be fun because then I'm going to test you throughout this conversation to see all your knowledges. But it's amazing. And sometimes we forget about just this really unique asset that's here in Minnesota and that people truly from around the world come to visit. And that's what's so unfortunate with where we're at today because it definitely has changed the tourism factor of what we've been experiencing with COVID and just the travel industry. But it's a really special place with a lot of amazing things, which I personally have been able to experience for many years here in my career path at MOA.
So how long have you been at the Mall of America now?
Over 20 years. So I started here as an intern my senior year of college at St. Cloud State University and drove back and forth during the fun Minnesota winters. And upon graduation, I had the opportunity to start on full time and have been here ever since. And now I'm the executive VPs.
Wow, that's fantastic. As the executive VP, just for the listeners here, so they get a better handle of this, what generally falls under the role of your business development and marketing role with Mall of America?
It depends what day it is. But that's honestly the best part of my role is that I get a chance to work on so many different things. And I think marketing is usually a little bit more defined. People usually can follow suit with marketing. It's the brand elements, it's the advertising, communications, community relations, events, sponsorship, group sales, tourism. It's a lot of those consumer-facing elements that a brand engages with their consumers. On the flip side, business development is that sector that's really open and is very agile. And especially with our organization, it has allowed me to develop paths that I would never be able to do at a different organization. I have a lot of flexibility in looking at how do we develop partners and how do we create innovation for the future. And I'm really focused on what new elements we can bring and really looking at the mall without 4 walls and knowing that anything is possible. And that's what I aspire to and just absolutely am motivated to try new things and to work with our team to really look at the future and what's possible.
What would be an example of a business partner or partnership that you're considering or maybe one that you've done?
So just recently this past year, and this was especially in the wake of the killing of George Floyd, we're very community-centric as an organization. And soon after the riots and the destruction that was taking place downtown Minneapolis and St. Paul, right away it was how can we help? What can we do to leverage our property to help in this time of need for our community? And so with having the opportunity that I have in my role here at MOA, I immediately reached out to community leaders and offered up the mall to be able to help. And we didn't know out of the gate exactly what that solution was going to be. But what was great is as we had the conversations, we landed on building a space called Community Commons, which brought in 16 different brands that were destroyed. They needed help to get their feet underneath them and really redevelop their retail experience and to be able to have a free location at Mall of America for 6 months. And now we're going into phase 2 of that. And there's been fantastic success stories. But it's taking a look at how can you work with the community? How can you leverage this amazing asset that we have and not always looking at it for the direct dollars that are going to be associated, but the long-term success and the community loyalty that we need to have here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So projects like that are just very different, that bridge different departments and also the community and outside partners. That's one example. And the other one is the Minnesota Transition Charter School, another business downtown that was impacted by the riots. And we gave them space here to set up their charter schools so that they could continue to educate the students through their rebuild efforts. And even though they are going to be rebuilding downtown Minneapolis, we're looking at a longer term play with Minnesota Virtual and seeing how we can still have educational elements, because we also have great internships and job opportunities for these high school students, as well as just, the connection to other unique curriculum, whether that's learning about physics in Nickelodeon Universe or learning about aquatic biology at Sea Life, but really making it creative and understanding that always looking at something through a different perspective or through a different lens of how can we do it different. And it really is fascinating to be able to work with these partners to try new things.
Well, and I find it interesting because, initially when you think about from a Mall of America standpoint, I'm thinking about the retail, not as much all of these other things.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's an area that we need to do better. We need to be able to tell our stories better because, to your point, you're expecting to hear all about retail, maybe about entertainment or hospitality or those other stories that are really powerful and how we connect with the community are ones that people want to hear about. And we've learned that we need to do a better job of sharing that with the community. I think personally as a leader, I've been very cautious that I don't want it to sound self-serving because I never want our goodwill and our outreach to the community to make it look like we are doing this for a self-promotion of any sort. Like we're truly doing it because it's the right thing to do. And we know that those relationships that we build are long-term and that we want to be that community partner that's here for the long run. And so that's what I think has created that hesitation. But I think it's really important to share those stories.
Right. Well, so as we're recording now, it's the beginning of 2021 and you've just gone through 2020. And obviously, we're still processing and working through the pandemic. And so as I'm thinking about having a conversation with you, just a firestorm of questions come off in my brain. I'm just thinking, let's go back to last March. What are you thinking when a pandemic starts and you're managing the largest retail space in the United States?
You're thinking, how is this possible? How are we going to get through this? How are we going to survive this? How long is it going to last? What is the future going to look like? And what was really unique with this situation is we were all facing it. All industries, all individuals, we were all facing this at the same time, which hasn't happened in our history of, we've had our own crises over the years, but having something like this, it was like, how are we going to get through this? But we know that we have a team that's dedicated and passionate about the changes that we need to make and working with all of our stakeholders, from our team members to our tenants, the community, knowing that, we're going to get through this. Granted, there's going to be change in that process, but we're going to work together. We're going to learn. We're going to try things. Some are going to fail. Some are going to succeed. But we know that we're never going to be back to where we used to be. And this is going to be change that will be set in place forever.
As I'm thinking of a timeline, because it all gets blurry to me over the last 10 or 11 months, what does it look like? Are you closed for a period of time and then open for a period of time and closed? What does it look like as far as even be able to accept guests into the mall?
Yeah, well, over the past year now almost, we have been closed. We have reopened. Portions have been closed again. When you look at the different factors of all the uses we have within our building, whether that be dining, and the restaurants went through a lot of different changes over the last 9 months. Our attractions completely had to close again and are reopened at a very low capacity. And so we don't know. As far as you look forward with the changes, we're hopeful. We're very optimistic that we'll be able to continue to remain open. Obviously, we're very close with the governor's office and making sure that we're staying lock and step to understand those plans, and we will always respect that direction because safety is our number one priority. But it's hard to know what's to come, but we've obviously learned a lot over this last year along with everybody else. And I think the collaboration that not only our community has had in this effort with business leaders and just other people in the retail and attraction industry, but nationally and internationally, like the shared learnings have been invaluable to just understand what we've been through and then how that's going to change how we operate into, this further into this year and beyond.
So if you have, 500 and some tenants, was there just inevitable turnover in that process? What has that been like over the last 10 months?
Yeah, as you can expect, there's definitely been turnover. You're hearing it in the headlines. Retail's been hit really hard. And those that were strong going into the pandemic will continue to be strong. They're innovating, they're agile, they're looking at opportunities of how they can really create a very successful digital and physical retail experience. And they're doing really well. And that's the transformation that we're going through. People are still going to want to go into the brick and mortar space, but they're looking for all the tools to make it really convenient because our shopping behaviors have completely changed. We're all now used to delivery and curbside and whatever, BOPIS models, things like that. And so that's definitely changing. Those retailers that were weaker going into this have either are really struggling or they've closed their doors because either they're shifting completely online or they just didn't have the resources in play to have that agility to move. So we've definitely seen stores close, but what's really important is we've also seen new stores open. And I think that's unique in the industry is that even over this past year, we've opened new retailers. Either they're retailers that were planning to reopen and they were able to execute and get their doors open during the pandemic, or ones that are now signing leases to open in the near future. They get our long-term success. They get that, there will be B and C level malls, the smaller regional or local malls that won't succeed because they just don't have the diversity of experiences, but A-level malls like Mall of America will continue to innovate and be strong and maybe even stronger in the future.
What has been some of your best innovations, do you think, in the last 10 or 11 months? It sounds like, as you mentioned, people are just changing the way that they shop and wanting a different experience. What have some of those changes been for you guys?
I would say the key to success right now is really listening to your consumer, understanding what they want and not necessarily putting your ideas forward, but making sure you kind of meet in that middle ground. Convenience is absolutely key. I mean, we're all used to now driving to our grocery store and just opening up our back end of our car and then loading in the groceries. It's about convenience. But we're finding that from a retail perspective in more of a non-essential, more of your apparel, accessories, gift type items. People are shopping online for those items that are busy type of to-do items. And then there's a huge conversion of the shop online, pick up in store, but they're still converting to coming in physically. So we know that with these services that we're rolling out, that there is that captive audience that's going to take that convenient factor of that service that we're offering, whether that be curbside or delivery or, buy online, pick up store, but they're going to still, there's about an 80% conversion of those people that are going to park, grab their stuff, but they're still going to come into the property. So I would say when you ask about what service has been or what innovation has probably been the most successful, I would say right now it's kind of a combination of everything because they're integrated in unique ways. But I would say what we directly for Mall of America, since being a property is sometimes, it's the nuance of a lot of people look at us as a retail brand, but we're actually the property that the brands live in. And so we don't have the same operational model as Nordstrom does because obviously they're direct to consumer with their products. We're here to support Nordstrom and provide the infrastructure to make it efficient for them to be able to facilitate what they need to do. Granted, we have that brand connection with consumers, so we have this really unique opportunity. But I think when you look at these services, live stream shopping was one thing that we launched that was unique to us as a property, but we brought it directly to our consumers. So what that is literally people can shop through their mobile device. And it's kind of for those of us that know QVC and shop TV QVC. It's like that on your mobile device. You have a host that is interacting with you, that's talking real time, showcasing products and brands, and giving you exposure to things that you might not even be aware of. So they'll literally take you into, like, let's say the Nickelodeon gift store, and they're gonna be talking about plush or t-shirts or toys. And you can, as a user of Livestream, actually go through the text chat and you can have a conversation with that host and look for other products, or they can answer questions real time. And you load your credit card in and you can buy the items direct. And then from our perspective, from Mall of America, we then take the operational side of it. We purchase those items, we ship them to you, and then the transaction's done in the back end. It is seamless. It's a new way for people to connect with Mall of America and also have exposure to a lot of the brands that are in our building. But yet, connecting with people from around the world, because this is not just something that's local. It's something you can connect with at the convenience of your own home, no matter where you live.
And that all was created just in the last year.
I would say we were dabbling in it the holiday before. So holiday of 2019, because it was starting to surface a little bit more internationally, especially in the China market.
Okay.
So we started playing with it a little bit, but as we flipped to 2020 and as things were changing and shopping, we pushed the gas pedal. I mean, as far as just really accelerated that opportunity, and now looking at what that's going to be for us in 2021 and into the future, because it's taken off, and it's a really fun way for our team and our brands to connect with consumers.
Your team is used to creating and facilitating more events, and you haven't been able to have any events. How's it been navigating that and keeping your team positive and connected and still motivated? It sounds like, again, you've filled in some of these different services that maybe they can focus their energy on, but how has that experience been?
Yeah, events are something that are really unique to Mall of America. And what I love is whenever you talk to somebody about Mall of America, they usually have a memory or a story to share about somebody that they met at the mall or somebody that they saw, because we're kind of coined as the Hollywood of the Midwest. We have a lot of celebrities that come through here and perform. And so that's been really hard for our team, because it's something unique, because they're free for the guests that come here. So not being able to gather an audience and be able to entertain has been a shift. And so we've been looking at, how do we still connect? How do we bring that entertainment value to guests virtually? But we also recognize that every brand's trying to do that. There's so many webinars and virtual events, and we're all just getting fatigued with having to be on the computer so much.
Right.
So different things that we've done. So like we have a Toddler Tuesdays program, which a lot of local parents love, because they can come and have their toddler entertained for a couple hours. But again, we can't do it in the traditional way that we've done it. So now what we're doing is we have an opportunity where parents can come and pick up kind of packages, like craft packages or goodies that they come and pick up. And then at home, they can actually do the craft or the interactive with the host that's on the show, that still brings them entertainment for their toddler. It keeps them busy for a little bit. So it still has the computer element, but it has a tactile component as well. And then for the holidays, we were really proud of how we had to change gears with our Santa experience, because everybody loves to come to Mall of America or any shopping center to visit Santa. That's a tradition. But right before Thanksgiving, we were told you can't do it, and so we had to quickly get creative and figure out how we actually had a new Santa experience this year called Candy Cane Institute, and it was already very COVID friendly. We had the social distancing, we had the linear experience, we had Santa via Zoom. It was going to be fantastic, but then we couldn't bring anybody physically in the space. So we had to convert that experience to a production studio, more or less, and bring that experience to people via Zoom. It actually worked out fantastic. Our elves knocked it out of the park. We had elves that would interact in an experiment kind of lab where you would learn about different facets of the holidays, and then ultimately talk with the big guy at the very end. And it just brought magic to the families and to the kids. And so part of it is, having these challenges in front of your team, getting creative of how you're going to find solutions to make it happen, and then celebrating when you achieve success, because it was amazing what was able to transpire, but to recognize the team and their creative approach to it. And then, but also the learnings of, we're going to be changing how we do Christmas moving forward. We're going to have in-person experiences, and we're going to have virtual experiences, because no matter where you live across the globe, you're gonna be able to connect with us in really special ways. So it's as challenging as it's been, it's opened up the doors, and we've learned so much of how we want to do things differently.
Well, and that was something I was thinking about too, because certainly every business has had to change how they've done business in the last year. What do you think will be the long-term positive? Kind of, it's almost like your perspective was forced to change, right? Like, we have to change how we do business. There's no choice. But now that you've done it and you're not doing some things the way that you have in the past, what do you think is the greatest positive difference that'll come out of it?
Anything's possible. Our team has always been creative, and I think we always lead with vision and the big idea, and then figure out how to do it. We've never had big budgets. As big as our name is, and as big as people think our budgets are very limiting. And so we always start with the idea and then figure out how we're going to accomplish it. And I think that's what's important, and for our team to, have that reassurance with what we conquered this past year, and knowing that even when we're closed and reopen, we're going to work together and we're going to find these solutions. And the collaboration across our team is just invaluable. From our operations and marketing teams, we are constantly challenging each other and poking holes through every idea that we have to make sure that we have a solid plan, and that we always keep that guest, their lens in perspective of everything that we do. And I really think that helps motivate the team, but also knowing that truly, if we put our hearts to it and find the resources and find the right partners that have the same passion we do, anything can be possible.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing that I was thinking about for you and for a lot of people that had to go through this, you probably didn't have a lot of time to think about the decisions you were making. We got to move, and we got to move now. This is not a 2-year rollout of something new. We got to do this in the next couple of months. I imagine there's just a certain amount of anxiety of not being able to give as much time to those thoughts. How did you handle that?
I think that's a very interesting point, because, looking back at even, in March when we were told we were going to have to close, and literally having really late nights because we knew we didn't have much time and we had to move very fast. What was really important is that you do take those pauses and just to make sure you're thinking clearly. And what's great with our team is no one's making the decisions in a bubble. We are collaborating as a team, making sure that we're thinking through as many perspectives and the risks and the rewards on everything that we're deciding. We know we're going to make mistakes, and you have to accept that, and you're going to do the best you can to have the support from the team. And I think that's what's important, that the fact that we have a lot of trust in our team. And so we know that everything's not going to be perfect, but we're going to work together and we're going to find solutions, and we're going to do the best that we can. But to your point about wanting to move faster, but knowing that sometimes it's just not possible, that was actually really hard for me. I do a lot of listening of podcasts and a lot of reading of industry pubs. And, when everybody's moving so fast, and then you have this push that, well, why can't we do it faster? And they can do it. But when you start looking at your roadmap and all the different things that you're working on, you have to prioritize, because you just can't do everything. It is a constant battle, but the key is having that trusting team that you can collaborate and build those ideas together.
There's a phrase that I've always liked, where your values are clear, your decisions are easy. When you think about the property at the Mall of America, what is your top priority?
Our guest experience. And you hit the nail on the head. You have to start with at level setting everyone, and knowing that you're all charting down the same path and you have the same goals. And that starts with having a mission and a vision that everybody understands and is supportive, and that everything ties back to. And as simple as it is for Mall of America, literally our vision is to create love reactions for every guest at every visit. And that guest can be the consumer that walks through our door. That guest can be our tenant. That guest could be your coworker. So making sure that we're constantly creating love moments. They're not like moments, they're love moments, because everybody that you talk to has a very special connection with Mall of America. Most people do. And so for us, the motivation is making sure we can make those love moments. And so starting with your mission and your vision, and then building from there and creating direct, focused goals, high level, so people know where you're going. And we keep it very simple. Literally going into this year, I think we have 5, and it's about keeping that as specific as possible. But then also for me, it's really important that we answer the question, why? Because as a team, they understand that, okay, this is what leadership wants to do, but why do we want to do it? Give them motivation, help them understand the reason why we selected those initiatives. And then from there, it's about working with the leaders within each of those teams to help build the details of how we're going to get to the result.
So, Jill, let's take a step back for a second. You mentioned kind of the 5 overarching goals for your team. What are those goals for this year?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share those. And, the whole process starts with taking a look at the industry and seeing what everybody else is doing, and then taking a look at what we've done over the years and what's important for us to keep the team on track as we move forward. And so our goals span, kind of a variety of topics. So one being safety, knowing that is the number one importance right now with everything that's going on. And we kicked that into gear right away in 2020, making sure that not only we had those protocols in place within the property, but also it's about the education and all the changes and making sure consumers know what's going on. So it's about being the safest place to shop, to dine, and to play in the Twin Cities, and making sure that every department has a touch point there. Second one being financials, knowing that we have to manage MOA financially to ensure viability through this pandemic. With all the ebbs and flows, it's no secret that we've been in the headlines, but we need to provide flexibility to our tenants to keep their lights on so that we can keep moving forward. And what's great is our financial partners get our long-term success. So they've been extremely flexible with us to set up that process, but it's for all of our teams to be really agile with that process and making sure that we have that long-term viability. The third one would be industry leadership, making sure that we continue to differentiate Mall of America as an entertainment and service-driven destination. It's not just about retail, and we've called that out multiple times in this conversation, but it's about leading with innovation. And one other topic that we haven't talked about is leading with sustainability. That is a really important topic for the industry, and I think across many industries, and has been really accelerated also with what's happened this past year. And it's important to be responsible as an organization for that long-term sustainability. And also about convenience and value, as we've talked about. The fourth goal is about leading with people and purpose. We are an organization that we make decisions based on our people, and that's our tenants, our employees, our consumers, but making sure that we strengthen our commitment to all of our stakeholders through direct efforts, through engagement, through commitments, and communication. And falling in line with that is our all our efforts around inclusion and belonging, about diversity and equality. Really important topic for all organizations to be talking about. And we've had great progress in that effort thus far, but it's also, we can all do better. And making sure that all of our team members are part of that conversation is really, really important. And fifth, about collaboration. We have sister properties. We have a property up in Canada, West Edmonton Mall, and out on the East Coast, American Dream. And making sure that we're working together with them and learning together and taking best practices across properties, but it's also that collaboration across the industry and across the globe, just knowing what we're all learning together and strengthening our industry side by side. So those are kind of the 5 key buckets, and then we get into more details below those, but hopefully they're not really a surprise, but that's how we organize it.
Sure. Well, that's kind of good to hear where all that focus is. It's obviously a more expansive thought process, but probably your average guest isn't aware of everything that's being intentionally done behind the scenes there.
Absolutely.
Now, I think about the work that you've done and the change that you've gone through in the last 10 or 11 months. How have you personally been handling the work-life balance? I imagine that there's been some extra long hours trying to roll out some of this stuff. And, whether it's you or your team, where you think about just burnout. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's been tough. Be completely honest. It's definitely not easy to be in a leadership position right now. But what's key is that you have to take the time yourself to reset and to step back and to be able to look at those things that help keep your mind clear and help have those de-stressing opportunities. For me, my family's been fantastic. I have 2 teenagers and my husband at home, and they are pretty much living and breathing inside those 4 walls. I fortunately get a chance to come in the office. I get a little bit of a break,
right.
But for leaders, it's giving ourselves permission to realize that it's not easy, and we do have to have those outlets, and that we can get emotional. We can, go for those runs to just get a break. We can turn off for a day or 2, or we, take vacation, do what we need to do, because if we're not strong, we're not leading a good example for our team. And it's been hard for everybody, and everybody's had a different situation. I mean, I have team members that are single, and there's a lot of isolation and there's a lot of loneliness. And it's finding ways to connect with everybody in different ways, but we're all going through this differently. And we just have to give ourselves permission that it's okay, and that we can lean on others to help us get through the tough days, because there's good days and bad days, but we're going to do this together.
It reminds me, I think it was the end of last May, because obviously my whole office moved remote within a week of the pandemic. And 2 months later, I had a staff person who said, "Do you mind if I work remote from my home, which is in a different state?" And I was like, yeah, I don't care. I mean, you can work wherever you want if it's, if we're remote. And she goes, I just haven't seen anybody in 2 months. And it would be really helpful for me if I could do it. And, I'm married with 3 kids and still doing sports and, well, maybe not then, but, I was still actively around people. And I thought, oh my gosh, I never even stopped to think this person is just by themselves right now.
Absolutely. And as a leader, you need to recognize that everybody's in a different space and you have to be there to listen, to empathize, and to support them in any ways that you can. I mean, I remember a lot of our video calls on the front end of all of this, last spring, last summer, when everybody was remote and we were just trying to get through day by day and there were so many unknowns. We would spend half of our team calls just connecting and asking how people were. And even I would do like scavenger hunts in their house or photo things or trivia games just for something fun to do, just to put smiles on people's faces, because it's tough and it's going to continue to be until we get out of all this.
And I do think it's, my own little experiment of whether or not it's generational, because when this is over, I do expect to be back in the office. Now, it may not be 5 days a week, but I have certain members on the team who would feel like if we never, ever had a day back in the office again, perfectly fine. Right?
I hear you. And it depends on kind of their role within the organization. But most of my team, with being the way that we're wired, we can't wait to get back together. Right. I mean, there's something said about, when you have those brainstorm conversations and when you really start building off of people's ideas, it's very different on video chats versus in person, because there's a different energy. And so we can't wait for that day, because it's been a long time.
So I'm curious, what is your normal process for making important decisions?
From a decision-making perspective, I always bring up risk versus reward. And I love to take risks. And so it's always pushing the team to go big or go home. But we don't want to chase, the shiny objects, for lack of a better term. But, you want to have focus on purpose and utility and making sure we're doing the right thing. But it's okay to fail, because that means we're pushing ourselves. And, having that mentality on the team and know that I've got their back no matter what. And we're going to learn from it. Even if we do fail, we're going to learn and we're going to apply it to future projects. But that's what's been really important, is just to have that set up within the team and knowing that we're going to work together and we're going to celebrate when we have awesome rewards. And if we don't, we're going to learn from it and we're going to move on.
Right. Well, that's great. So obviously, Jill, you're somebody that has received a number of accolades in the business world. I'll read a few of them. Minnesota 500 Most Powerful Business Leaders, the Power 50 from Minnesota Business Magazine, 40 Under 40 finalists, Minneapolis St. Paul Business Journal. Many different entities have recognized you for your business success. But how would you define being successful?
Making a difference. And I think I turned the corner probably halfway through my career, knowing kind of, they always say, what do you want people to say about you when you retire? And I felt like at that time it was going to be, oh, she's a hard worker. And I'm like, because I would always, I was the last one to leave, first one to get in, working on the weekends, always connected, always available. And I'm like, is that what I really want people to say about me? So I kind of shifted gears, and that's when I really got more involved in the community from, business organizations like the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, Minnesota Business Partnership, women's councils and things. I wanted to be bigger than the mall, like take what I learned and build those relationships and contribute to the community of what I've learned and how I can maybe make things bring value. But then beyond that, it was also to the community from a nonprofit perspective, and how could we not only support them at the mall and how can I develop more partnerships there, but how can I personally make a difference? Because now I feel like, as I look back, that hopefully is shift from, oh, she's a hard worker to, she's really making a difference.
It's interesting that the definition of success over time for you, it sounds like, has been, how do I make more of an impact on other people's lives than being so concerned about my own?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so when you look forward, professional career, personal, however you want to put that together, what are you the most excited about?
what's possible. I just, this year has really accelerated so much. And as hard as it was, there's so many silver linings, and it has really just jump-started projects that we had been talking about for years. So I'm really excited about the future of Mall of America and my role here and what I can contribute towards. Beyond that, from a personal perspective, I really look forward. I really want to write a book. I want to capture these moments and these stories that I've had for 20 plus years. I would love to write a book. And I also would love to get into teaching. I've done a lot of guest speaking with students, and they inspire me. I love young minds and just the creative process. So I would love to be able to get more involved from a teaching perspective and be able to share my learnings and hopefully inspire others.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. A good friend of mine who's in her mid-40s like me said, I've only lived half my life. What's the next? Mm-hmm. I could be an entirely different person, I'd want to be the lead singer in a rock band. That would just be me. Except for I don't have a voice, so that would be harder, But no, anyway.
Hey, if you make it big, we'd love to have you perform here at MOA.
So I can be in the Mall of America. It's part of my
Absolutely.
program. Yes. Well, Jill, I really want to thank you for taking the time today. I've really enjoyed hearing about how you've had to navigate the last year or so and what your perspective is at the Mall of America and everything you do personally. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate your interest in our story and allowing us to share it. So thank you.
You've been listening to Joe Renslow, Executive VP of Business Development and Marketing at Mall of America. You can learn more about the shopping experiences they're now offering or the many community initiatives by going to mallofamerica.com. On our next episode, we chat with Karen Nelson, Executive Vice President and Chief Legal Officer for the Minnesota Vikings. Karen talks about her relationship with Kevin Warren, who was the COO for the Minnesota Vikings, and remembers her thought process when he first asked her to join the Vikings organization.
I just kind of had to go with my gut, knowing that it is extremely unlikely to move to this kind of role at an NFL team at this stage of my career.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ascent Podcast, a show about inspiring people who explain their path to achievement. I'm your host, Joe Burgess, wealth advisor and founding partner of Moxie Wealth Management. You can learn more about me and my firm at moxiewealthmanagement.com. That's MOXIE wealthmanagement.com. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.